Right. Well, look, first of all, thank you very much for coming out this afternoon. Thank you for everybody being on Zoom. It looks like there's as you say, more people on Zoom than there are in the room, but it's lovely that we've all managed to come out and to hopefully gain something from what we're going to be looking at. I just want to say a big thank you, first of all, to Brother Andy Backhouse here, because this is his idea. He said to me before Christmas, why don't we do something on watching? And I said, this is a good idea. Why don't we do something? And so thank you, Andy, for putting all of this together. So watching's the big theme, okay? And this first talk, there's no slides. So those on Zoom who are expecting to suddenly see some amazing graphical thing pop up right now, you're not going to see anything. You're just looking at my face. That's the downside. But the second talk, it is. We've got graphics. We're going to be looking on the second talk as to what we should be watching, okay? But right now we're looking at why we should be watching. Everybody okay with that? If you stop and think about it, has there ever been a time in all of human history when we've just got so much to watch? And I'm talking about the TV and computers and phones and iPads, cinemas. We're surrounded by things to watch more than at any time in all history. I mean, when you stop and think about how much there is to, when did you last say to your wife, husband, what should we watch, dear? What do you want to watch? Oh, I don't know what's on. Let's have a look. There's thousands of things now. We're inundated with things to watch. Does anybody remember the day when the TV used to go off at midnight? Do you remember that? Do you know when that was, by the way? When do you think it was that all channels went off at midnight and there was nothing? When was that, do you reckon? You guys there are thinking this can't be true. I absolutely can't believe this ever happened. When did you think it was? 1963. Do you know when it was? 1986. How amazing is that? Up until 1986, your TV on all channels, regardless of channel, went off at midnight and went blank. Do you think we had this sort of stuff then in 1986? Did we have the internet in 1986? Did computers exist like we have them now in 1986? And the answer is no. So when the TV went off at midnight, what do you think you could watch? Nothing. There was nothing. There was the grand total of nothing. You had to go to bed. And if you woke up in the night, there was nothing. Just nothing. You streamed nothing. I mean, isn't it unbelievable, really, that in such a short space of time, we've been inundated with watching. And if you went back 100 years, by the way, what would you be watching then? Nothing. There was nothing. There were just absolutely nothing. So we have suddenly got used to watching. And the trouble is, of course, there's so much that you can now watch, you don't know what to watch. So you go, what should we, I don't know, what should we, I'm bored of that. It's crazy. But here's the thing. Perhaps it's the case that in these last days, when you can watch just about anything at any time, anywhere, anyhow, could it possibly be that the watching that we should be watching, maybe we're not watching it as much as we should be watching? Do you think that could have happened? It could have done, couldn't it? So really this talk, I would put it in the bracket of exhortation, right? To say, yeah, we're never going to all stop watching what's out there because it's around us all the time. But are we putting it into perspective? And are we, in amongst all of our watching, at least spending sometimes watching what we should be watching? It's a fair point, isn't it? Really. I suppose we could answer the question pretty quickly as to why we should watch by just quoting Jesus, couldn't we? and then just sit down and say, well, we've listened to Jesus. That's the end of the story. Because let me just read you a couple of verses here. In Matthew 24, verse 42, it says, this is Jesus talking, watch therefore, for you do not know what hour your Lord will come. Mark 13, verse 37, that Brother Mark read for us, Jesus concludes Mark 13 by saying, and what I say unto you, I say unto all, watch. In Luke chapter 12, verse 37, Jesus says, blessed are those servants whom the Lord, when he cometh, shall find watching. End of story, isn't it? Do you know what? If somehow we could have booked Jesus in this afternoon, I wonder what he's, right, we've booked Jesus, he's going to come along, he's going to talk about the subject of watching. Do you think he would be saying anything different than what he said 2,000 years ago? Or do you think he'd say, look, it's been a while, 2,000 years have gone by, and clearly the world's changed, and clearly I need to update my message slightly. I've been thinking about it, and actually watching is a sort of an optional extra. I know I came across pretty clear that watching is really, really important. What I say unto you, I say unto all, watch. But I'm going to water it down for you in this last generation, because clearly it's a bit tricky. Or do you think he would stay bang on message? Do you think he's changed in any way? I don't think he would change it at all, would he? He would use exactly the same words, just 1,000 times more wonderful and eloquent than I could ever do justice to. You look at the word watch. Some people say to me, oh, when it says watching, Andy, it doesn't really mean watching, you know. I say, well, that's interesting. What does it mean then? Well, it means it's just about looking inwards. It's not watching like that. It's sort of making sure that you're okay yourself, like an inward watching. And there is an element to that we'll touch on. But when you look at the original Greek word, which if for those of you who are interested is Gregorio, right? That's what Jesus said, Gregorio, that's the word to watch. That particular word, if you want to look it up, it conveys the idea of alertness, stopping, sleeping, waking up and looking at something, watching. I mean, it's a surprise, isn't it? It's the word watch. It means to rouse yourself. It means to get up. It also means to give strict attention to something. So it's not just like, you know, when you watch something on the TV, it's not really, it's just, it's there, but you're not, no. This is absolute focus on something. It's paying really careful attention. That's what this word is. By the way, have any of you got a more modern version than I've got the authorized version here? Has anybody got like a New King James or something like that? Could you do me a favor? If you're still in Mark 13, have a look at verse 37. Is there anything slightly unusual about the word watch in your version of the Bible? I mean, clearly it's not going to be astronomically, amazingly different, but is there anything slightly different that yeah? So yours says alert. Anything that's saying watch, but there's something unusual with the word watch? You've got a capital, and who said what? Who in here has got an exclamation mark in their Bible? So we've got 3 or 4, 5, 6, 7. Right, so some modern versions have got an exclamation mark, and some have given it a capital W, haven't they? And you say to yourself, I wonder why it's done that, because you know something, there's no exclamation mark in the original Greek. They don't have exclamation marks. So why have the translators thought, let's put an exclamation mark after the word watch? Do you want to know why they've done that? Well, it's because in the Greek, this word watch, when Jesus says, what I say unto you, I say unto all, watch, that word watch is written in the active present imperative tense. If I said to you something's imperative, what sort of words go with imperative? Urgent, sorry, Richard. Urgent. You got the right answer all along. It was there. He's got urgent. Do you think that's what it sounds like? It's present, active, imperative tense. He could have said it in another way, but he didn't. It's imperative. It literally does mean that. It's got a huge sense of urgency with it. So when Jesus said, what I say unto you, I say unto all, he didn't say, what I say unto you, I say unto all, watch. I don't think he said it like that. I think he said it like, what I say unto you, I say unto all, watch. Which is why there's the exclamation mark after it. Because it's got exclamation built in within it. Jesus is saying, as a Christian, this isn't some optional extra to your life, you know. It's imperative. I'm not just saying it to you, I'm saying it to everybody. And it's urgent. Some people have said to me, I don't watch in the way you're talking about watching. Look, I'm a Christian and I go around loving everybody and I do the things, but that I don't even need it in my life. I don't need to do it. I've actually had people say, I don't need to watch. But is that the right approach? Because if we're followers of Jesus and he's saying it's imperative and we should watch, and there's an urgency to it, and it's a commandment to everybody, then surely it's not an optional extra to our Christian lives. The other interesting thing, of course, is if you have got your Bibles open in Mark 13, which we're not going to go through, but if you did skim through it, is it not full of things to physically watch? It's got famines and earthquakes. It's got nations rising against nation. It's got wars. It's got signs in the sun, moon, and stars. It's got something to do with an abomination standing on the holy place. It's got a parable of the fig tree, which we know is in reference to Israel and the rebirth of it. It's got loads of stuff. And guess what? It's all stuff that we're watching. Somebody's at the door. They're knocking the door to come in, which is great. Okay. There is, of course, an element of what we're doing, which is, oh, it's Clive. How are you, Clive? Come in. Come in. You're here. And that's the end. So what do you think to that? See you. You're here, Clive, and that's the main thing. I'm not going to start again, though, Clive. I'm telling you that because we're a good few minutes into this. All right. So look, in Revelation chapter 3, Jesus links watching with what we should be doing ourselves as well from a practical perspective. In Revelation 3, verse 3, it says, remember, therefore, says Jesus, how you have received and heard, and hold fast and repent. If therefore thou shalt not watch, I will come on you as a thief, and thou shalt not know what hour I will come upon thee. So Jesus basically says in that little verse, there's really two things. You've got to hold fast to what you've heard. I think some modern versions say, hold fast to what you learned at the beginning. Don't start changing what you believe later on in your life, because what you heard at the start is the right thing. Isn't it pretty amazing how much is going on at the minute when suddenly everything that we've been taught over the years, some are saying, well, I don't think that's right anymore. And suddenly the switch is around from what we think is right. Jesus says, don't do that. Hold on to what you first believed. And then he says, if therefore you don't watch, I'm going to come on you as a thief. So there is an element of us holding fast to what we believe and an element to us watching. Is watching relevant to these last days? I mean, again, some people have said, Andy, look, I believe the kingdom's coming and I believe it's going to come whether I watch and whether I don't watch, which is true, isn't it? But then why did Jesus say in the Lord's Prayer, pray thy kingdom come, because if it's going to come, why even bother asking? It's the same sort of thing. Jesus says, I need you to pray for it. And he also says, I want you to look for it. Have a listen to these verses, because, well, let me read them and then I'll tell you what I think. So in Matthew 24, we read these words. Watch, says Jesus. These are all words of Jesus, by the way. Watch, therefore, for you don't know what hour your Lord does come. But know this, that if the good man of the house had known in what watch the thief would come, he would have watched, and he would not have suffered his house to be broken up. Therefore be ye also ready, for in such an hour as you think not, the Son of Man cometh. In Matthew 25, Jesus says, watch therefore, for you don't know the day or the hour wherein the Son of Man cometh. In Mark chapter 13, Jesus says, watch therefore, because you don't know when the master of the house cometh, at even or at midnight or at cock crowing or in the morning, lest coming suddenly he find you sleeping. And what I say unto you, I say unto all, watch. In Luke chapter 12, verse 37, Jesus says, blessed are those servants whom when he cometh, shall find watching. Verily I say unto you, that he shall gird himself, make them to sit down to meat, and come forth and serve them. Jesus, when he comes back, is going to wash your feet and serve you. But who is he going to do that to? Those who he finds watching when he comes back. Interesting, isn't it? Revelation 3, verse 3 says that we've already read, remember therefore how thou hast received and heard, and hold fast and repent. If therefore thou shalt not watch, I will come on thee as a thief, and thou shalt not know what hour I will come upon thee. And in Revelation chapter 16, verse 15, Jesus says, behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watches, keeps his garments, lest he walk naked and they see his shame. And he gathered them together and into a place that is called Armageddon. Every single one of those passages, and that's all of them that Jesus refers to as watching, are to do with what? What was the main theme with every single one of those? Watch. And what did he say? Because of what? You're going to have to tell me the answer. Because Christ is coming. Who are the people that are going to see Jesus come? The people who are watching. But actually, we're probably, if Jesus came today, the whole world at some point will see Jesus arrive, won't they? At some point, they're going to see him. But the point is, it's us as the last generation that are going to see Jesus physically come. We know those who've died before will be raised from the dead, and essentially then Jesus has arrived for them. And so the words watching do apply to all generations, because you've got your 70, 80, 90, or however many years we give them by God's grace to live right now. And our watching comes to an end if we were to die before Jesus comes, and then we're raised from the dead. But don't you think that in its greatest extent, all of these passages predominantly point to the people who are actually going to see Jesus come? Do you think? So when you stop and think about it, all of the watching fundamentally is focused on the few people that are actually going to see him come. The very people that are surrounded by all these different elements of watching that have never been there in all of history that we talked about a few minutes ago. Jesus is saying specifically to us, switch some of that off and look yourselves at what is happening in the world. So you are prepared for the day in which I come, the day in which I appear. That, I think, is clearly the message. Now, here's another thing. Did you notice that a few times he linked what our watching and his return to being like a thief. Did you hear that? Jesus said twice in Revelation, remember, I will come on thee, if therefore thou shalt not watch, I will come on thee as a thief, and you won't know the hour that I will come. In Revelation 16, behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watches and keeps his garments, lest he walk naked and they see his shame, and he gathered them together to Armageddon, which we know is still to happen, isn't it? Have you ever thought how weird that is, that Jesus says, I'm going to come like a thief? I mean, out of all the things he could have compared himself to, a thief is not number one on your list, is it? It's in the 10 Commandments not to steal. The Apostle Paul specifically says that if you're a thief, you will not enter the kingdom of God. And out of all the things that he could have chosen to say that I'm going to be like when I come back, if I was going to write a list, thief wouldn't have been at the top of the list. A robber, a thief. And you think to yourself, it is a bit odd, now I stop to think about it, that Jesus has compared himself to being like a thief. It's very, very, by the way, has anybody actually ever had a burglary where a thief has come round and stolen? Anybody? Keith and I seem to remember that happening. Twice it happened. And Sam last night. Oh. A couple of nights ago. They were coming up the stairs when Sam woke up. This is last night or the night before, Thursday night. Out of all the things that can happen in your life, I think one of the ones that is going to give a huge amount of anxiety and is the one thing that is really not anywhere close to what you want to happen is somebody breaking into your house, is it? It's something that we all would dread because it's an invasion of our house, plus the fact they can do all sorts of damage. You don't know what they're going to do. There's all sorts of damage. They're stealing your stuff. It's shockingly horrible, isn't it? Some people, once they've been burgled, will sell the house because they can't mentally cope with the house anymore, knowing that strangers have been in their house. Say somebody said, I mean, I presume nobody told Sam that they were going to burgle the house beforehand. Not that you know of. Has any burglar ever posted a note through somebody's door to say, just so you're aware, I'm planning to burgle your house next Saturday, just as a heads up? Doesn't happen, does it? But supposing somehow you knew, supposing the police came around and said, we've got information, we don't know the day or the hour, but we know, roughly speaking, in the next, call it a week, you are going to be burgled. Would you do anything differently in your life if somebody said that to you? And what would you do? You'd probably stay away. You'd probably find it hard to sleep, wouldn't you? You wouldn't sleep as well. If the person convinced you that the thief, if it was the police, let's say, and they were very convinced, we can't tell you when, but we've found somehow or other that we know this is going to, you would find it. So you probably stay awake a bit more. What, anything else you would do? You'd leave quite a few lights on. You get some extra locks on the doors. You'd probably start you'd be very aware, wouldn't you? You'd start I heard something on the gravel there. Could this be that? This could be that. This is it. I think it's come. Thing is arrived. You tell the police. You'd probably get yourself kitted out with security. Right, this is it. We are getting security cameras. Big. There's everywhere. You'd be looking at them, wouldn't you? You'd be watching what is happening out there. I don't think you would do nothing. Oh, it doesn't matter. It's a thief. I don't mind. I'll leave the door open. Doesn't matter. You see the thing that's going on here? Once you understand that a thief is coming, it makes you act. It makes you do something. It makes you do something that you wouldn't have done otherwise, don't you think? Like staying alert, putting up the cameras, locking the doors, putting lights on. That's exactly what you're going to do. I guarantee you, you would do nothing. Say you knew exactly, if Sam knew for definite that the house was going to be burgled, would she have gone to bed that night and fallen asleep? She wouldn't. They'd have been sat they would have had the lights on, they'd have been looking. That's exactly what is going on. And that's exactly why Jesus is saying, I'm coming like a thief, and you need to act as if I am coming as a thief and get yourself prepared. So when somebody says to me, I don't need to watch, I've got lots of faith without watching, I don't need to watch what's going on. Jesus says, no, I'm like a thief. And if you would do something different, if a real thief was coming, don't tell me you're going to do nothing for me when I'm telling you that's what it's like. We don't know the day or the hour, but we're given enough information. It's a bit like the police saying, we don't know the day or the hour, but it's in a window here. We know roughly it's going to happen soonish. So we go into a heightened state of alert, don't we? The vast majority of thieves come at night. There are burglaries in the day, more opportunistic. They tend to plan more at night. They'll plan things out. They're not just randomly walking around. They target places. They've checked it out quite often. Don't you think that's interesting? Do you think we're in the night time of the world right now? Feels like the night time of the world, doesn't it? Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12 says that we live in a very dark world, the darkness of the world, it says. When thieves come, it's frightening, isn't it? Your heart is going to be going like an absolute sledgehammer. Ange was away last night. I hate being on my own. I've got 2 dogs. I nearly got them into the bedroom with me last night. I'm useless. And I'm sort of even then trying to think, there's gravel all around our house. I'm thinking, I'm sort of more, it's pathetic, I know. But yeah, I've never grown up. Do you think the return of Jesus is going to be frightening? Do you know who it's going to be frightening for? Those who aren't watching. If you're wide awake, the thief's still there, but you haven't got the same fear because you're on the front foot. If you're fast asleep and suddenly somebody's walking up the stairs, as with Sam, now this is horrific. Somebody's in the house. I am now shocked. My heart's going like, what's this person going to do to me? Do you think the world is going to be shocked and frightened when Jesus comes back? Oh, yes, it is. Yes, they are. Do you know how I know that? Because it says, listen to this. Revelation 1 verse 7 says, behold, Jesus comes with clouds, and every eye shall see him, and they also which pierced him, and all the kindreds of the world shall wail because of him. Not rejoice because of him. You know that word wail? It means to mourn. They weep. They mourn when Jesus comes. I'll tell you why in just a second, because you think, surely the world will just go, this is wonderful. Jesus has come to the earth. I never believed in him, but he's here. That isn't going to be the reaction. It says all of them are going to wail. A bit like a burglary. You're going to go into panic. The world is going to panic. What's the one thing that a thief is looking to do? Steal. Is Jesus going to steal anything? Right. He's going to steal us for one. He's coming to take us because we are his treasures. It says in 2 Timothy 2 verse 20, we are treasures that Christ has come. Well, hold on, I'm reading my own words rather than the Bible words here. In a great house, there are not only vessels of gold and of silver, but also of wood and of earth, and some to honor and some to dishonor. If a man therefore purge himself from these, he shall be a vessel unto honor, sanctified and meet for the master's use, and prepared for every good work. In other words, there's gold and silver that Jesus wants and can do something with, which is exactly what a thief would steal. And there's all the other stuff he's not interested in. And Jesus is interested in us, who are like, we've had our faith tried like gold, haven't we? Gold and silver. We are precious. We're more precious than gold and silver because that corrupts and breaks down. But the analogy is, we're not like wood and dirt. In God's sight and in Christ's sight, we are as precious as gold and silver. And that's what a thief is going to take. And Jesus is coming to take that. But you know something, and this is the bit why you get the more, by the way, when did I start? I've lost completely. I've nearly finished. Are you all right for a minute? You're okay. John's all right. We're all right. Just a few more minutes. Here we go. So there's another thing though, that's connected with wealth that's going to be taken away by Jesus. Do you realize this? Here's what it says. By the way, before I read you these verses, do you think the world puts its trust in cash and wealth and money? It's what it's all about, isn't it? Money makes the world go round. The love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. We trust, I mean, we do. We believe in this, and we still look at bank balances to say, can we survive? Can we get through? Can we retire? Have I got enough money if something goes wrong? We still do it. And the world definitely does. That's why everybody's into the lottery and gambling, and they're trying to get cash. Give me more cash because I'm more secure. But this is what is going to happen when Jesus returns to money. In Isaiah chapter 24, now listen to these words carefully because this is coming down the track. See, the Lord is going to lay waste the earth and devastate it. He will ruin its face and scatter its inhabitants. It will be the same for priest as for people, for the master as for his servant, for the mistress as for her servant, for seller as for buyer, for borrower as for lender, for debtor as for creditor. The earth will be completely laid waste and totally plundered, stolen away. The Lord has spoken this word. You see, what's going to happen is all of the money that we all think is somehow secure and in our bank balances is about to become completely and utterly worthless, because in reality it is worthless. What's it actually built on? It's built on sand. There's nothing really there. There's no real gold bars, backing up the trillions of pounds worth of wealth in the world. And when Jesus comes back, it will collapse very, very, very quickly. And the world is going to see complete and utter financial collapse. Really, what's going to play out, this is another story on a slight tangent, but do you remember with Joseph in Egypt? Have a look there. It says about 4 times that money failed, money failed, money failed, money failed. And it says that the people came to Joseph and said, what can we do, my lord? Our money has failed. All we've got left is our bodies and our lands. And Joseph said, well, you'll have to give me that then. And it says that the people gave all the land to Joseph. And it says at the end of that process, Pharaoh owned the entirety of Egypt. They were forced into it because money had failed. And the whole life of Joseph, as I'm sure you're well aware, is an allegory of exactly Christ's life, both his initial first coming when he was thrown in the pit and ended up in jail and so on and so forth. But the second bit is when he was ruler of Egypt and put second in command to Pharaoh himself, is an allegory of exactly what is going to happen when Christ comes back, and money is going to fail. When it talks about Revelation, we were talking about Revelation. When we're talking about Revelation and Revelation chapter 18 and 19, it talks about the entirety of financial systems coming to an end. It's not just symbolic, it's saying it's going to fail. So when Jesus comes back as a thief, two things happen. One is he steals us away because we're precious to him out of the dark house, and we were awake and we were watching. So he doesn't frighten us when he comes because we were looking for him. The rest of the 7.6 billion people on the planet who aren't looking for him are frightened out of their wits. The whole of their life that they've concentrated on and focused on is suddenly worthless. You see that? The other final thing I just wanted to say in relation to this thief business is Jesus said, "Behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watcheth and keepeth his garments, lest he walk naked and they see his shame." Why does Jesus link watching to being like a thief to then saying, keep your garments unless you walk naked and they see your shame? That's a bit of a strange thing. What has Jesus coming like a thief got to do with garments and being naked? Well, let me just read you this. This is from a Bible dictionary. I'm just going to read exactly what it says. Watchmen in the Bible were guards responsible for protecting towns and military installations from surprise enemy attacks and other potential dangers. Ancient Israelite cities often stationed watchmen on high walls or in watchtowers. Their job was to keep watch and to warn the townspeople of impending threats. The practice of burning the garments of negligent watchmen is recorded in the Talmud, a central text of rabbinic Judaism that contains a vast collection of teachings, commentaries, and interpretations of Jewish law and tradition. In the Talmudic tract Barakot 3, don't ask me, there is a discussion about the duties and responsibilities of watchmen. It mentions that if a watchman falls asleep while on duty, his garments are to be taken from him and burned. This practice served as a form of punishment and deterrence to ensure that watchmen remained vigilant and fulfilled their duties to protect the community from harm. It underscores the seriousness with which the responsibility of a watchman was regarded in ancient Israelite society and the severe consequences for failing to uphold this responsibility. Interesting. So basically, if I was appointed as a watchman and fell asleep on duty, I would be stripped of my clothes, they would be set on fire in front of me, and I would be forced to walk home stark naked, and nobody wants to walk through the streets naked. I wonder what the garment is that's stripped from us. Who are we clothed in? Jesus. Our clothing is that of Christ, and he's basically saying, if you are not watching, your own clothes will be taken off you, the clothing. That's how important this is. And did you notice what the watchman's job was to do? It was to look out to see for enemies coming or a thief coming. And what then did he have to do? Blow the trumpet, warn the people. Blow the trumpet, warn the people. Do you think if we're watching and seeing these things, that we might be more encouraged to blow the trumpet and warn the people, like people that we know? Presume we all know people, including ourselves, but also outside of these walls, don't you think? Do you think it's part of our responsibility? Remember, all of this is imperative. It's absolutely imperative. Jesus said that. So I think there's three things to do with watching. First of all, I think we can take from all of this that it's to do with preparation. It's to get ourselves in the right place with God now, because we're aware of what's going on and the nearness of his return, and we're getting ourselves on site. So just exactly, if you knew a thief was coming, would you prepare? Would you do something different to your normal everyday life? If the answer is yes, then it should be yes in regards to this. What am I doing in my life that I need to sort out right now because the thief is coming? Jesus is coming. So preparation is one. I think the other thing is, and it's sort of linked together, is perspective. If we did have the note somewhere in here that told us the exact day and hour, and I know many speakers have said this over the years, but if we did know, we would have a different perspective sat here right now, wouldn't we, on our current diary that's in our phone somewhere. You're probably not so concerned about the holiday that you've just booked, are you? We better get the holiday in there, because Jesus, remember, he's coming on this date. So basically, I mean, you wouldn't even bother, would you? I mean, why are you worried about all of these things? Why are we even planning anything down the line? All of our plans that we merrily make as if all things are going to continue as if they were are not all going to continue as if they were. So the more we're alert and believe of the nearness of Christ's return, life suddenly goes different perspective, doesn't it? Do you think that? And suddenly what is concerning and what is difficult or I mean, look, it can give you a different perspective on the good and the bad. It can give you a different perspective if you're suffering. It can give you a different perspective if you're going through difficult times. It can give you a different perspective if everything's going okay. And actually, I'm planning all these things. And my focus is on work or careers or this or that. All of it changes. Perspective massively changes, I think, if we're watching. And the third thing, so there's preparation, there's change of perspective. Any idea what the third thing is that we do with when we're watching, which we've already talked about? Begins with P. Preaching. It helps with our preaching. I'm not necessarily saying that all our talks are related to this. I mean, clearly we've got to help people understand Genesis chapter 1 and on we go. It's not leaping straight into let's talk to you about Revelation. No, of course it isn't. But it's helping people understand that time is nearly up, that Jesus is coming, the world is going to change, the ark is there, the door is still open, you can still come on board, but there will come a point when the door is closed. It sort of gives an extra bit of push to it all, doesn't it? And maybe, as we said at the start, when you look at all the passages of Jesus saying, watch, every one of them says, it's when I come back. Watch, because you don't know when I'm going to come. And out of all the generations that have ever lived over the thousands of years, surely, out of all people that have ever lived, this message has got to be the most poignant to me and to you. As Jesus said, what I say unto you, I say unto all, watch.